Welcome to this Rethé session. This is the last session focused on guidelines on how to write the usual sections of a scientific paper. In this session, we will cover the discussion and conclusion sections. I'm Elaine Nsoesie, a native of Cameroon and a professor at the Boston University School of Public Health. I will share guidelines on how to write the discussion and conclusion sections of your paper. Let's get started. Unlike the introduction, methods, and results sections that have well-defined expectations, the discussion is not clearly defined. So it can be a difficult section to write. I'm going to share some guidelines to consider. First, boldly discuss the significance of your work. You've spent the time to complete the work. Talk about it. Discuss your major findings. Tell the reader what you found. Point out exceptions in your findings. Is there something unique about your findings? Is there something unexpected? Tell your readers. Discuss what is similar or different between your findings and other studies. After discussing your findings, tell the reader what are your conclusions. Make sure each is clearly stated and supported by the findings from your study. Some journals have the conclusion as a separate section, while others combine the discussion and conclusion into a single section. Let's look at the discussion section of a paper we published in 2023. The paper is titled Use of Machine Learning Methods to Understand Discussions of Female Genital Mutilation or Cutting on Social Media. The first paragraph restates the aim and major findings. In this study, we aim to characterize discussion of FGM on the social media platform Twitter from 2015 to 2020. In general, we found that discussions about FGM has not changed significantly over time. However, there were differences in the number of newly engaged users over the years, suggesting that users differed across years, but users with similar views, backgrounds, and intentions may be drawn to Twitter as a platform for discussing these topics. While tweet counts steadily decreased after 2017, retweet and like counts remained well above pre-2017 levels. This may suggest that although fewer original ideas about FGM were circulating post-2017, users were more familiar with the topic and more likely to retweet other voices. Major countries where conversation was concentrated remained consistent. However, the country with the highest volume of users shifted from the UK to the United States in 2017, until Nigeria and Kenya became the top countries in 2020. The paragraph before the last discusses how future studies could address the gaps and limitations in our current study. I've highlighted the conclusion, which summarizes how our work fits into the broader discourse on the topic and how social media can be useful for addressing our research problem. Future studies should explore what proportion of social media conversations about FGM are from people immediately affected by the practice. With additional research, public health practitioners, non-governmental organizations, and governments can educate and design targeted interventions to reach communities and countries where the practice is ongoing. These analyses add to a growing body of work that uses social media conversations to characterize, stigmatize, or misunderstood issues. Using Twitter data allows us to keep a finger on the pulse of public discourse to understand perceptions, develop public health communications, and hone more effective interventions. It is important to discuss the limitations of your study in the discussion section. Clearly stating the limitations will reduce incorrect assumptions, list potential improvements that can be addressed in future studies, shows that you understand any possible shortcomings. The limitations should address where or when your study is not applicable. Should you state that A, the study is applicable everywhere and at all times, B, the study might not be applicable in countries with different healthcare systems or cultures. B highlights that there are some limitations in the applicability of the study, which is typical. The answers the following questions. Are there specific contexts or populations where your study conclusions might not hold true? What are the limitations of your study's generalizability in terms of geographic location, time, or other factors? Another question to address in your limitation is who is in your data? There are two possible ways to answer this question. A, our data includes diverse people in multiple cities. Since our data is from populated areas, people from a variety of ethnic and socioeconomic groups are represented. B, the data includes individuals from Lagos and Yaoundé and does not represent rural populations. Additionally, there is a lack of representations from certain ethnic and socioeconomic groups. B endeavors to state which individuals are included in the study. You should address these questions. Are there any demographic groups or subgroups underrepresented in your data? How might the absence of certain populations in your data impact the conclusions of your study? Another question to address is, what mathematical assumptions do your methods make about the data? Here are two examples of answering this question, and both can be correct. A, we use a linear model to represent a relationship between certain variables, which might not always be the case in reality. B, we used a method that did not make any assumptions about the data. Specific questions to consider include, what assumptions did you make about the relationships between variables? How might violations of these assumptions affect the validity of your results? Here's another question to consider in the limitation section. If implemented, how would your study impact different populations, especially marginalized populations? Here are two possible ways of answering this question. A, the study hopes to positively impact everyone. B, while the study's findings could lead to improvements in healthcare access and quality for some people, there's a risk of worsening existing inequalities. Option B is better because it addresses the fact that certain marginalized populations might face barriers to accessing the healthcare benefits resulting from your study. Here's an example of a limitation paragraph within the discussion section. This is from the paper Use of Machine Learning Methods to Understand Discussions of Female Genital Mutilation or Cutting on Social Media. One major limitation of this work is that it is restricted to conversations happening about FGM on Twitter. Twitter users are not representative of a global public, and we have limited information on demographic characteristics of users. Conversations offline or on different social media sites may vary from findings here. Further, the data are not definitively representative of all conversations or users. Though tweets were collected from users around the world, we only analyzed discourse among English language tweets. Tweets about FGM were identified based on presence of certain terms, so we may overlook conversations about FGM that do not use these terms, particularly terms for FGM in languages other than English. Lastly, topic models were run separately for each year of data. As such, the models are not directly comparable and may contain slightly different identified terms. Here we note three limitations: the lack of representation, the analysis of English-only data, and limitations in the analytical approach. Thank you for participating in this session. To learn more about Rethé, please visit our website.